Mauna Loa summit is almost 14,000 feet, although we don't really ever go up there. It's a little bit higher than we're allowed to go unless we're all wearing oxygen masks. But we'll go as high as we can. No lava flows over here on the left side. That's 1859. Remember the lava went over under the landfill and over the ocean? This is that same eruption right here. It sent the lava all the way down the hill. It came out right up here in front of us. It did not come out the summit. It came out on the side. That's Mauna Kea on the left. Just barely taller than Mauna Loa. Like 100 and some odd feet taller is all. Mauna Kea is dormant though. That one hasn't erupted for an estimated 4,600 years. It should again someday. Probably not anytime soon. Also, you can see some of the observatories up top. It's a great place to put a telescope, Mauna Kea. Immediately to our left, there's a military zone. Between us and Mauna Kea, it's the Pohakaloa Army Training Facility. They've been using this middle of the island up here for live fire military training since World War II. Most of the time it is pretty quiet out there. We don't usually see much, but every once in a while they shoot artillery and drop bombs and something that's visible.
Our airspeed right now.
Airspeed's actually pretty low because we're climbing 65 knots is all. We got on a real kind of a steep climb to get us going uphill. It's a steep slope in front of us, but at ground speed showing 77 knots. That's about 90 miles an hour, roughly. That's definitely on the low side. We'd probably cruise 130 miles per hour-ish, typically, 130 or so. So this 1859 eruption site, it's right in front of us now, where it was kind of a crack right here that split open with lava was coming out. A little bit unusual because most of the time the eruptions will either happen at the summit or on a rift zone. So there's kind of the cracked areas down the sides of the volcano that typically will erupt, and those are the rift zones. This is neither. It's just sort of randomly on the side. Unusual location. Outside air temperature is currently 16.4 Celsius. What's that, like, I say like 62 degrees or something. Actually a lot warmer than you would guess up here, right? Especially since we're almost to the snow. now 10,000 feet.
What is that glossy look?
Well, there's definitely snow up here, but also, it depends what you're referring to. There's also two types of lava. Some of it's more glossy, some of it's real matte black. So the glossy lava is called Pahoehoe lava, much more smooth, kind of shiny. The rough matte black lava is called A'a. They're actually both made from the same material. It's all basalt lava, and sometimes they come from the same eruption. The difference, it's the temperature. Well, the temperature of the lava when it was just about to come to a stop, like the final moving moments. If it was extra hot, it's more fluid and smooth. But if it's cooled down a little too much, yet still moving, it gets all clumpy and chunky. It ends up a total different texture. Again, A'a and Pahoehoe. And you could pretty easily remember at least one of those two names, the A'a lava, the rough stuff. When the Polynesians first came to Hawaii many hundreds of years ago, all of this stuff was new. They didn't have words for any of it. They had to make things up, right? And you got to remember they never wore shoes. If you ever stepped on this rough, busted up lava barefoot, you would definitely say, ah. It's believed to be a true story, and it's funny. So, you know, makes sense. Now you'll remember it anyway. There's a facility up here, head to the right. This is Mauna Loa Solar Observatory. This is the highest of any like civilization or structures on Mauna Loa, about 11,000 feet. Now, the whole point with this place is solar observatory, so they're looking at the sun during the daytime. And I guess a secondary observation they're doing up here is an air quality monitoring. That little tower is an air quality sensor. And some of the most important air quality measurements for the entire planet are taken right here. The reason is, here in Hawaii, the trade winds are blowing east to west. East of the Big Island, there's nothing but ocean for 2,400 miles. So when the air gets here, it's basically as clean as it's going to get anywhere on the planet. So it's a good baseline. You know, how are we doing? You hear about people talking about, the concentration of carbon dioxide or whatever measurement they're talking about changing on our planet. This is the place they're getting measurements from. Now, there are two more on the planet. There's this one here, and there's one more at the north slope of Alaska, and another one at the South Pole. This for backup purposes. And it's a darn good thing they've got the backup measurements, because this is out of commission right now. Now, obviously, it wasn't hit by lava, but the road and the power lines leading up to it were. So nobody can come to work. These guys that work up here, they're sitting at home right now. They weren't up here. Thankfully, the eruption started at night. Nobody was even here at the time. The lava started coming down the hill in front of us here a few hours later, and, nobody even had to evacuate because they weren't here yet, but they also weren't able to go up, save anything, or do anything with their equipment. So just exactly how it was when they left it for the night. And this road here is cut off now. The lava was... So the first place that eruption last month started was actually in the summit caldera on our right, which we aren't going to be able to go up high enough to see, but really all it did was start filling up with the lava in the caldera. But then, a couple hours in, a rupture happened over here on the rift. This gentle ridge we're coming up on, this is Mauna Loa's northeast rift, and it ruptured open up here, and the lava started pouring down the slope to the left. So it started coming. That's what all these lava flows are here, just old eruptions that came out the rift and started going down the hill, just like the one we just had did. the left, you'll see the road goes straight into the lava. So you can get a sense for that new lava flow. I mean, they all look the same, but that's the new one right where that road disappears. It's right up here. We're talking, this is recent, just a few weeks back. Probably still warm. Well, inside, internally, it definitely is. But on the surface, probably not too warm anymore. It cools down on the outside pretty quick. I mean, you could probably walk in it on top of it within a couple days. Yeah, this was the hot zone last month. Everybody was trying to come up here to see it. They had restrictions. We couldn't quite go this close. We had to stay a little higher and further off. Now that it's not erupting, they're letting us go wherever we want, really. Yeah, the road just dead ends. Like, well, it does dead ends in two directions, I guess. It went quite a ways down. Had it kept going, the question was it going to turn right or left? Because it's a downslope both ways. They didn't really know where the turn was going to happen. Was it going to go to Hilo or into Waikoloa? Then it stopped. This is it, right underneath us, straight below us. Like, that's it. You see the channel we're kind of crossing over here? There's a couple of them actually, but these channels have like a river of lava flowing within the channel in the center. Then we kind of heap up on the sides and overflow and create the So the Pu'u up there, the little hill with a gash out of the side of it and a trench leading up into it, black one up there, that's the actual eruption site. That's Fissure 3. And this is the rift. See the rise we're coming up over? This is the ridge down the side that's cracked and weak and keeps erupting. We are way up here. I mean, the lava could have come out Fissure 3 and gone this way. It would just happen to just barely be far enough the other way to go downhill towards the saddle instead.
The people 4x4ing and still trying to come up here to see the lava flows? Is that
people were doing all kinds of just silly stuff, yeah. There were people trying to come up here, and the geologists were bringing helicopters up here and shooting people away. And yeah, there's actually a camera right underneath us right here. We're about to cross over. The geologists set that up. They flew down here, landed, and set that up. And that's the eruption site right there.
So you can't drive up here and see any more lava channels anymore?
No, I mean, what we're seeing, this is as good as you're going to get. It's just done right now, that's the thing. That's where it came out. been 38 years since the last eruption, but on average, this thing the average cycle for this is about 5 to 6 years. I guess it was overdue for like 33 years or something. Everybody was kind of wondering. After a while, we were all kind of like, yeah, whatever. And then eventually, the geologists were like, oh, you know, it's kind of grumbling a little bit. It might erupt pretty soon. And we were all like, yeah, whatever. We've heard that before. Because we have. You know, they were saying it a bunch of years ago. It was, oh, it's going to erupt soon. And it was grumbling, and then it didn't. Yeah, like, whatever. But then, I told her it was the middle of the night. So I was awake. My phone goes off. It's like, Mauna Loa eruption, like one of those civil defense warning kind of texts, you know. I'm like, no, wait, what? So I look out my window, I'm like, holy smokes, I can see it from my house. The sky was glowing, and the top of this thing was just brilliant orange. It's crazy. I quickly set up a webcam and started streaming to YouTube. Ended up like 40,000 views. Everybody watching the thing, you know. Other people ended up with much better cameras. That camera we just crossed over up there had a way better view. Obviously, right next to it, right? But that took a couple days to get set up. For the first few days, I had the only actual live stream view of the entire eruption. We're headed to Kilauea, right in front of us. Kilauea is the most active volcano in the world. It's erupting more often than not. Although it's not technically erupting right now. Although it's kind of a... what's the right word for it? It's like a... well, let me put it this way. It's not technically erupting, but it's doing almost the same thing it was when it was erupting. So, have you been over here? You guys been out to Volcanoes National Park, Kilauea? So, it's a huge caldera at the top of the volcano. That's where the national park entrance is and everything. The caldera has been filling up with lava over the last couple of years. The lava lake has been rising inside the caldera. It's currently now 1,200 feet thick of lava. And it's still got a long ways to go before it could ever overflow because it was super deep before this thing started filling up. But it's got a huge lava lake inside. The problem is, as that lava lake fills more and more and more, the surface area gets wider and wider and wider. And that surface has been cooling and crusting over. And that crust kept growing more and more and more of the lake, and now finally it just crusted the last bit. So it's still a lava lake, and it's still rising and still filling. It's just got a big crust on it. You can't really see the lava anymore. And because you can't see the lava, that's literally how they define an eruption, is visible lava at the surface. So it's not technically erupting, but it's still doing the same thing. We're going to fly over and take a look down into it. If it keeps filling long enough, you know, well, there's a couple different potential things that could happen. Maybe the filling will just stop, and then it'll start solidifying through eventually. Maybe it'll continue to fill to the point where it could overflow someday, although it's got a long ways to go. Or maybe the pressure building as the caldera fills up more and more with lava, down on the rift it could rupture instead, like it did up here on Mauna Loa. Kilauea is the shortest volcano on the island. We were just up at 11,000 feet, right? Kilauea's summit is only 4,000 feet, 4,100. We're headed down the slope to Kilauea. And for many years, nobody even realized Kilauea was a separate volcano from Mauna Loa. Everybody thought Mauna Loa just likes to erupt down here on the side. That's kind of what it looks like, you know? But eventually they figured out there was a separate magma chamber and an independent plumbing system over here, and that means it's a different volcano. It's just that it's younger. It hasn't grown as tall. It's growing up out of the side of Mauna Loa.